I'm excited to be here to preach God's word. Every time I stand before you guys, I love it. I love you guys. I'm excited to kick off this new mini-series. As Max pointed out, it's gonna be about work. And as you can see from the title here, a lot of you guys are in a stage of your life where you're either still in high school and you're trying to figure things out. You are deciding whether or not to go to college, whether or not to go to a trade school, or just start work right away, or maybe take some time off, take a break. Some of you are already working, some of you are already in the career field, and you're not sure, is this the right thing for me? It's not fulfilling, it's a little maybe boring, or just something that I'm not enjoying, and you're not sure if this is something you want to do for the rest of your life. And there's so many questions because work is such a big portion of our life. I think besides sleep, this is where we spend the majority of our time, and it's from a very young age, from around 20 until you retire, if it's into your 60s or 70s. So it's such an important part of our life and such an important way that we dedicate our time. And so it's for that reason it's important to get it right. And I'm curious. I just want to ask a quick question to all of us. So raise your hand if you already know what job or career that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life, if you're sure. Okay. Roughly half. Raise your hand if you're not sure, you have no idea, and you're kind of like... All right, you can put your hands down. It's around 50-50, which is sort of what I expected. It's tough. It's really tough. I want to sort of just kind of piggyback off what Max was saying and talk a little bit about just why we want to talk about work. We want to talk about work we want to talk about work and God's design for work, and perhaps answer some of these tough questions that we all have regarding work. We won't necessarily be diving into or going in depth on how to find the exact right job for you, though that will be part of the conversation, and we might talk about it indirectly. But we'll talk more about the big picture of work. What is God's plan? What is God's design? And how to find meaning in our work, and how to not have it consume us or become an idol. Before we get into Scripture and some of the theoretical and then practical stuff, I want to share a little bit of my journey, just so you guys know that I don't have it all figured out. For me, it was a path with lots of twists and turns, and I think it's going to be like that for some of you as well, especially those that are unsure. And even if you're sure, things might change pretty quickly for you. There's a lot of things and variables that affect what kind of jobs we have, whether it's health, whether it's just the conditions of the market, economy, and things like that. As I was growing up, I had no idea what I wanted to do. My parents sort of pushed me, and not in a bad way. I guess they really encouraged me to go into the medical field. And it was mainly because, as immigrants, as all of us are, the medical field was considered sort of prestigious. We came from relatively poor lifestyle. And so you come to America and you have all these opportunities, and so parents were like, go into the medical field. And I remember actually at one point they were asking, they're like, Pasha, you're so good at giving massages, maybe you could be a chiropractor. And I think they were trying to scam me for some free massages, but I didn't really want to do it. I definitely didn't want to be a chiropractor because in my mind I'm like, I don't want to touch old people all day. And it's maybe not the right way to think about it, but that was my main reason. I'm like, I don't want to do this. And then I also knew for sure I did not want to be a farmer, because I worked at Seavers for 5 or 6 years. We'd wake up at 4 a.m, our whole summers, all day, just out there in the sun, bit by mosquitoes, sorting corn. It was, it was all right for a teenage job, but I'm like, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. I do not want to be a farmer, okay? And luckily my parents didn't encourage me to be a farmer, so I lucked out there. And then as I got older, I decided to pursue the medical field. I thought perhaps I would be a doctor. So when I went to college, as a pre-med sort of path, I chose to go to be a medical technologist or a lab tech. in case I don't get into med school, because it seemed like it was really hard to get into med school, that I could fall back on that and work in the hospital lab. And as I was doing that and as I was finishing up that degree, I'm like, I don't want to be a doctor. It seems too hard. And it seems like you have to it's like 4 more years of school, plus like 4 years of residency. So it's like 12, plus if you specialize in something, it's like another 2 to 3 years. It's like 15 years of school. You don't get to hang out with your friends as much. You don't get to enjoy life as much. Like, I don't want to do that. And so I just kind of stopped right there, and I started working as a lab tech, and I did that for about 5 years. And it was a pretty good job, but it had some challenges. And again, I enjoyed spending time with friends, but that job required working a lot of evenings, a lot of weekends, and so it was tough. And I didn't see myself doing that long term, especially. I was married at that point, and we wanted to have kids, and it would have just been really tough to live like that with like a very uncertain schedule and try to manage a family. But I still continued to work. And then our lives completely changed, and my wife and I moved to Nepal and lived there for 2 years as missionaries. And there, mainly I focused on teaching. I taught kids English, I taught kids typing and programming, I taught small groups, things like that, scripture. And that's where I kind of fell in love with programming. And while I was there, COVID hit, and so I could go. I went back to college. I was almost 30 years old. So just to kind of give you a frame of reference, that's when I started finally figuring things out, what I want to do. So if you don't have things figured out, I want to assure you, that's fine. There's still time, and it's never too late. So I was close to 30, and I'm like, do I want to go back to school and do this all over again? And I prayed about it, and I thought about it, and my wife and I decided that this is what we're going to do. And so I went back to school, and everything was online. I was in Nepal. I would go at 3 in the morning. I would go to these lectures, wake up, sit in the lecture, and go back to sleep. And then when we came back from Nepal, I finished the degree, and I've been working as a programmer for the past 4 years, and I've been loving it. It's been really fulfilling. I'm glad this is my career. I really, really enjoy it. I'm bummed out that I didn't get to do it earlier, that no one directed me to this career path. And I'm not blaming anyone. I think it was just it's tough to figure out a path for someone. It's hard to know what you like until you try it. And so that's what I'm doing now. And the thing is, everyone's saying that AI is going to take my job now. So my days are numbered as a programmer. So it's possible in a couple of years I'm going to be a farmer. So maybe that's where God is. He's going to make it full circle, and I'll be back in the fields before I know it, because I don't see AI taking farmer jobs anytime soon. Maybe somewhere down the line. And so all of that is to encourage you guys and say, you don't have to have it all figured out today. Sometimes you have to try things. Sometimes God has a different path for you than maybe what your parents have laid out for you. Sometimes things just kind of come in unexpected ways, and you have to be willing to take chances, to look for opportunities, to try different things that you wouldn't have otherwise. And maybe that's where you'll find enjoyment and fulfillment in your career. I want us to open to Scripture. And I really want us to dive into the idea of work and God's design for work from a scriptural perspective. First, we'll start with Genesis 1:26 through 28. It says, "Then God said, 'Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground.' So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, 'Be fruitful and multiply.' Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." And we're going to move down to Genesis chapter 2, verse 15. And this is really the key verse that I want us to focus on. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to take care of it. All right, who can tell me, was this before or after sin had entered the world? All right, I heard some uncertain befores. Yeah, it's definitely before, all right? Chapter 3 is where Adam and Eve were deceived by the serpent. Sin had entered the world, and the curse was given to them for their sin. In chapter 2, when it says, the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to take care of it. This was before the fall. And what does that mean? Here are the key ideas that we can extract from these passages. Work existed before sin. Work existed before sin. So before sin had entered the world, God had designed man and put him to work. So work is not a result of sin. We'll talk about that in just a little bit, like kind of the curse and kind of what that means. But we oftentimes think of like work in such a negative way. Like this is, if it wasn't for Adam, I wouldn't have to work. I wouldn't have to do all these things. That is not the case. God created man and he put him to work before sin had entered the world. And it's part of being made in God's image, which is why we read verses 1:26 to 28. God said, let us make mankind in our image. And when God created the universe, and he rested afterwards, right? Even though he didn't physically need to rest, it was more of a demonstration for us, right? But that's God working and creating things, creating the universe, creating the world for us. And so we're made in God's image. Humans are designed to cultivate, to build, and to care. If we look at what God asked them to do in the garden, it says, and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to take care of it. That's what God asked Adam to do as his first job. So work existed before the fall, and it will likely exist in the new kingdom. And that's kind of a interesting thing I didn't really think about much until I was prepping for this. Randy Alcorn is a prominent theologian, preacher, speaks on heaven a lot. He has a book called Heaven. It's a good read. In the book, he talks about how it is very likely that work will be a part of our life in the new kingdom, in New Jerusalem, in heaven. And he lays out a couple different arguments in making this case. And so the first part we kind of already talked about is work is part of the original blessing. Work was from the very beginning, before the sin. Point number 2 was that the nature of the curse, the fall did not create work, it corrupted it. So the curse made work menial, tedious, it made it frustrating, it made it just difficult. But it wasn't that the curse introduced work, it just corrupted it. God himself is a worker. In John 5:17, it says, my Father is always working, and so am I. And we're made in the image of God. In Revelation 22:3, it says, servants will serve him, meaning the people there, the glorified believers will serve him. And his interpretation, or the interpretation there, is that and in some translations says we'll worship him, that the service or worship is not just like a sitting there meditating, or kind of how we always view when we're younger, especially before we mature as Christians and we learn about heaven, we view heaven as this boring thing where you just sit and you sing hymns all day. And so it's going to be quite the opposite. And we're going to worship him and serve him, and one of the ways that we will do that is through work, and in itself will be work. And it's likely that a lot of the jobs that we have here won't be there, right? Policemen, security, doctors, there's going to be no more sin, no more pain, so there's not going to be any need for that. But potentially things like builders, engineers, artists will continue. because they involve the perfection of human culture. And part of the argument, again, is the Garden of Eden was sort of an image of the perfect world, and if man was working then in that setting, then it's okay to assume that it's possibly going to be happening in heaven. Now, we don't know this for sure, but this is sort of an idea or thoughts regarding this. And so I think I want to kind of shift our mindset, and I want us to think about it in this way. It's part of God's perfect design. God created work before the fall, and it's part of his own nature. We're created in his image. He worked to create the universe, and work is a way to build, to grow, to encourage human flourishing. Work is good. And think of the work we do today, the jobs that you guys already have. Most of you are either in school or have jobs. And sometimes we kind of think of jobs as boring. And, usually when you're like, oh man, I have to go to work, I have to do this. I think it's so important to reframe our thinking about the work that we do. For example, I have listed out kind of a handful of different jobs that some of you are involved in, or just kind of categories of jobs, and the way we can reframe our thinking to look at it through God's view and look at it through a way where work is fulfilling and wonderful. For example, if you're in food service, if you work at a fast food restaurant or any restaurant, you're helping people eat food to survive. You're encouraging relationships, people to go there on dates. You're a part of that. You're helping facilitate that. You're being part of celebrations and family gatherings, people who celebrate birthdays, people who celebrate special occasions. You're a part of that. You're helping make that happen. If you're in retail, you're helping people find the right tools for their lives. If you're in the trades, you're helping people create a home where their family will flourish and make memories. You're helping either repair the home that is broken to make it better, or you're helping build this place for people that will live there, and it will be a wonderful place for them to grow their families in. If you're in healthcare, you're helping those who are hurting, protecting their dignity when they're at their weakest, when they're at their most vulnerable. If you're in childcare, you're caring for the next generation so they feel safe and loved, and giving their parents a peace of mind to provide for their families. If you're in cleaning and maintenance, you're creating order out of chaos, and you're helping make a place beautiful and wonderful to be in. If you're in tech support, you're helping get rid of people's frustrations and helping them do their work or stay connected to their families. And if you're in homemaking, it's probably one of the most underrated, underappreciated jobs. But being a homemaker or a full-time parent is such an impactful, wonderful job that is so often underlooked and underrated. And you can go on and on and on. And as I'm listing these out, as I keep talking, think about the role that you have. Think about the job that you do. And instead of thinking about it in some negative, boring, menial, mundane kind of way, try to reframe it and think about it in a way where you are helping someone, you are providing a service for someone, you're helping someone achieve or do something that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do on their own. And if you reframe that role or that job you have with that type of thinking, it's going to be so much more fulfilling and so much more enjoyable to do your work every single day. Now, you can't say these things about every single job, right? And I'm like, there's got to be a line somewhere, and it's basically, right, if any ethical, normal job, if you're a scammer, if you're, a hitman for hire, it's hard to spin that in a positive way, and, I don't want to try. But I would assume that all of us here have good, ethical jobs. Those are who are in the career or who have a job or who are pursuing a job that you're looking to have just a normal, ethical job. All right? And if you're not, we'll pray for you. And hopefully this, as we go through the work series, can change your mind. And so notice I didn't really talk about, I didn't touch yet on ministry. And it kind of brings up a question of, is ministry more spiritual than engineering, nursing, trades, etc.? Is ministry more spiritual than those jobs? And by ministry, I mean like full-time pastor, a worship leader, etc., devoting your life to the church, to missions. Is that more spiritual than engineering and all those other jobs? And the thing is, I would say no, and I would argue no, and here's why. I don't think there's a hierarchy of spirituality between jobs. All ethical work is a form of service to others, and therefore a spiritual act. It's a way of loving your neighbor. It's a way of caring for those around us. It's a way for us to demonstrate God's love to the people around us. We just talked about how all ethical jobs are good, or can be viewed in a good way. And so the New Testament never calls us, all Christians, to abandon our jobs and pursue a life of full-time ministry. There's a verse I want to read in 1 Thessalonians 4:11 through 12. It says, "And to make it your ambition to lead a quiet life, you should mind your own business and work with your hands, just as we told you, so that your daily life may win the respect of outsiders, and so that you will not be dependent on anyone." So that your daily life may win the respect of outsiders, and so that you will not be dependent on anyone. In the past, and to some degree even today, I think ministry was considered the most spiritual of jobs. And what would happen is, usually this would be an issue with men and fathers. So many men would lay their families down at the altar of ministry. And what I mean by that is they would sacrifice their families by ignoring their responsibilities as fathers and husbands in order to serve the church. I've heard so many stories of men leaving their families for years to go on trips and leaving their wives to take care of multiple children on their own, all for the sake of, in the name of ministry, and the wife and the children would be fatherless for years. The wife would be without a husband, forced to do all the things on her own, and if she dared complain, you'd say, "Oh, well, your husband's doing awesome work for the Lord. How dare you? How dare you complain?" And so there's so many cases of families growing up without fathers because of this. And so even though the father was, technically he was there, but physically he was gone. All because ministry was considered super spiritual and above all. So ministry can absolutely be a lifelong career if you are called to it. But it is not more spiritual than every other job. And it's certainly not more important than your responsibility at home. I think we sort of can view it in that way, where we kind of twist it and see ministry as the ultimate holy calling for us. But in your daily lives, whatever work you do, whether it's retail, whether it's trades, you can share God's love to the people around you. You can spread the gospel to your clients. You can spread the gospel to your coworkers. There's so much amazing work you can do in shining and being a light and being a Christian, and no matter what setting you're in. I want to switch a little bit to the application. Now that we kind of talked about God's design for work, what now? When you're thinking of pursuing a job, when you're thinking of pursuing a certain career, don't just ask, "What do I love?" Ask a couple of these questions. What am I good at? What is needed? And I think most importantly, what has God placed in front of me? And the way they can see that potentially is, it could be direction from your parents or your friends. God can definitely and absolutely does speak through our parents. And he can say, "Hey," your parents like, "Hey, I see that you're really good at this. Maybe this is something that you would be good at or potentially pursuing as a career." Or your friends say, "Hey, you're really awesome at doing this. You've helped me out maybe you're good at fixing cars and you help me out. Like this could be an awesome career for you. Maybe you have a deep passion for something, or you see a need somewhere, right? You see a need that you're willing to fulfill or you want to fill. And so in that way, God has put it on your heart to pursue something. Maybe it's something that just comes very easy for you and that it's very impactful and positive for the people around you. There's so many ways that God can place something in front of you and guide you towards something. Sometimes it takes just a little bit of thinking. It takes a little bit of opening our eyes. It takes a little bit of mentorship or talking to the people around us. We often hear when we're talking about like what kind of careers, how do I choose a job? Usually it's like, hey, figure out what you love and do what you love. And honestly, I think it's good advice. I think it is good advice, even though sometimes it's very cliche. But I kind of been thinking about this for a while, and I think there's sort of two paths, two main paths, right? There's probably other paths or just like where you just don't do anything and just hope for the best. Usually that doesn't work out, but there's sort of two paths. First one is kind of the one that I just mentioned, where you figure out what you're passionate about, you figure out what you're good at, and you pursue and find a job in that area. And then you work, and that's kind of it, right? Or at least that's the goal, to work and to be fulfilled in your career and to bring blessing to people around you. So figure out what you're good at, and once you do that, find a job. Option two, or sort of the second path, is almost the opposite, or a little different. It's flipped a little bit. First, you pursue and find a job. You try something maybe that you don't particularly enjoy or you're not sure about. Or maybe someone presented you with an opportunity and you're like, I've never done that before. I'm not sure if I'll be good at that. Or maybe you see a need that needs to be filled, a work that no one's doing, and you're like, maybe I'll try this. And you're just not sure if you enjoy it. But as you're doing it, you understand the impact it has. And you can learn to become passionate about the work that you're doing. You can see the impact that it has on people. And as a result, you become passionate. As a result, you learn to love that job that you're doing, even though you originally did not. And then you can find joy and fulfillment in that type of work. And I think it's a good way to potentially go about it in case you don't know what you want, or in case you don't know what you enjoy. And I think that's kind of the challenge, because some guys I talk to, I'm like, hey, what do you want to do a career? What do you enjoy? And sometimes it's like, well, I enjoy video games, and I think that's awesome. It is tough to find a job playing video games, even though some people do make careers out of that. But even then, if you think about it, you can be a programmer and you can create video games. You can be a designer and design video games. There's so many jobs that are sort of adjacent to that. When I was younger, right, it was just I was relying on my parents to sort of guide me, and like a career counselor at school who probably didn't care very much. At least my career counselor didn't really care. He's just like, I don't know, fill out this form, and it'll have like weird questions. Those career forms. I think some of you have done it where there's websites where you're supposed to answer a bunch of questions, and in the end, it tells you what job you should have. And I could never fill those things out. It was always so weird because it's like, would you rather be like a horse doctor or like a human doctor? And I'm like, I don't know what kind of doctor I want to be. I haven't tried either of those. I probably want to at least try that before I can answer that question. And it would just be really tough. And in the end, it would probably say farmer. And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't know how it decided that. But that's not what I want to do. And so those were not really great. But nowadays I think we have so much more access to resources. There's so much more that we can do to figure out what kind of careers there are, what kind of jobs we can pursue. There's a lot of people. There's a lot more sort of diversity even within our own church of people pursuing different careers, and we can talk to people in those areas and get some information for ourselves. There's another kind of common question that people have that I wanted to talk about before we close is, what if parents disapprove of your career choice? Raise your hands if you're willing. If you're in that tough position where the career you're choosing or the career you're thinking about, your parents aren't too excited about, raise your hand. Don't be shy. All right. Thank you for being honest. Those who are honest, I know it's kind of a vulnerable moment, but I would bet there's probably a lot more of you here than raise their hands. I think it's a tough question, and I don't have like a simple answer for you. Like boom, here's what you do if your parents disapprove of your career choice, because it's really tough. There's so many variables, so many factors at play. For example, even the relationship with your parents. How much do they trust you and your choices? How much do you trust them and their opinions? How close are you to them? For example, or the actual career path that you're choosing. I remember growing up, there's a friend of mine. He came from a wealthy family, and his parents didn't approve of his career choice because he wanted to be a teacher. Which is a very noble, very needed job, but because his family came from wealth, they kind of looked down upon that role because teachers don't get paid that much. And so his parents disapproved of that. And does that mean that he shouldn't go into teaching? I would say, I would still encourage that type of person to pursue that. Not that you should disobey your parents, right? We'll get to that in just a second. I want to be very careful, because otherwise we're going to get some emails or some parents coming up. Usually they'll come up to Dima. They won't come up to me. They'll be like, why are you guys talking about disobeying your parents? So that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's complex, and there's a lot of factors at play. Another thing that kind of depends is your skills and abilities. Sometimes our parents see more than we do. They raised us. They changed our diapers from the very beginning. They know all about us. And perhaps they see that the career you're pursuing doesn't align with your skills and abilities. And maybe they're, trying to steer you in a different direction. And sometimes our parents may not have an understanding of that career path. And maybe it's our responsibility to help them understand it, to teach them. And to be like, well, maybe there's more to this career path than you're aware of. And let me explain why, and hopefully your parents would at least be willing to listen to you. And there's so many different careers, like for example, lawyers. That was traditionally viewed as for Christians especially, as a very sinful job, because lawyers, you're defending. You could potentially be defending criminals. You would potentially have to be lying a lot, but I think we can understand that that's not necessarily the case, right? There's so many different types of lawyers. You don't have to be defending criminals or police officers. Again, in the Christian communities for a long time, and probably still today, if you were to ask your parents, is it okay for a Christian to be a police officer? I would imagine most parents probably say no, but maybe some say yes. So my advice is, if parents outright prohibit something, and if you have God-fearing, God-loving Christians of parents, if your parents prohibit something, the wise choice is to listen to your parents rather than to rebel. The wise choice is to honor your father and mother, because it is very likely that God is speaking through your parents. But if that's not the case, be willing to talk to your parents about it, be willing to pray with them about it. And I would also encourage you to have a mentor and talk to someone older and wiser, who's perhaps not your parent, but someone who is a family man or woman, someone who has a family, because a lot of times our careers will impact our families. And I think that's important to talk to someone who has been through that career path or something similar, and get some advice for someone that you know and trust, and someone that can speak into your life and be honest to you if that's like a career or not that you should pursue or not. And so with that, I want to lead us into closing thoughts. I want to invite the worship team out. As they're coming out, I just want to summarize everything that we talked about. Work is God's design. Work is a design, not a curse. You were created to work because you are made in the image of a working God, right? Work came before sin. All work is sacred. There's no hierarchy. An engineer or a parent is just as spiritual as any ministry job. Bloom where you're planted. Passion is often built through faithfulness and competence in your current role, not just finding the right dream job and hoping you just somehow stumble into it. And lastly, labor with eternity in mind. What you do today matters because your work has the power to impact souls. No matter what job you have, most likely you're interacting with people. Most likely you have coworkers. Most likely you have people that you talk to. And even if you're not directly speaking the gospel to them, you can absolutely be a light into their lives. I'm sure you guys have all had experiences where you've come into contact with someone, whether it was in a hospital, whether it was just anywhere, where someone you can tell that they're a believer because they have joy, because they're happy, because they're nice, because they're kind, and there's just something about them. You're like, I don't know exactly what it is, but I know that they're a Christian. And that's the kind of impact that every single one of us can have with the type of jobs that we do. Amen.